I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but sometimes life hits you harder than you could ever expect. What I found out about my wife turned my entire world upside down. The lies, the secrets, and the ultimate betrayal. It's something out of a nightmare. This isn't just another cheating story. It's deeper, darker, and more twisted than you can imagine. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll understand why my life will never be the same again. My name's Jake. I'm 38, and I've been married to Amanda for 9 years. We met through mutual friends, hit it off immediately, and built a life I thought was solid. I work in IT, while she's a marketing executive for a big fitness brand. We don't have kids, just our 2 rescue dogs, Bailey and Max. Life was good, or so I thought. The first crack appeared when Amanda signed up for personal training sessions with a guy named Brandon, one of the fitness trainers at her gym. At first, I was supportive. She was passionate about fitness, and I liked seeing her happy. But then, things started changing. She suddenly became too busy for our usual Friday date nights. Texts from her during the day became shorter, more distracted. She laughed more while on her phone, her face lighting up in ways I hadn't seen in months. One night, she came home from the gym later than usual, flushed and jittery. I asked how her session went, and she mumbled something about pushing hard and going for a recovery smoothie afterward. Something didn't sit right, but I didn't push. I told myself I was being paranoid. I mean, she was dedicated to her fitness goals. Wasn't this just part of that journey? Looking back, I realized that was the moment I started losing her. After that night, Amanda's behavior kept shifting in small but noticeable ways. She was glued to her phone, tilting the screen away when I walked by. Her gym trips stretched from 1-hour sessions to 3-hour workouts. One Sunday, she told me she was heading out for a fitness expo with some gym friends. I suggested tagging along, thinking it could be fun. Her face dropped for a split second before she plastered on a fake smile. "Babe, it's really boring. Just fitness talk and protein shake samples. You'd hate it." That stuck with me. She used to love when I joined her for events, but now, she seemed almost defensive. One evening, I noticed she'd left her phone on the kitchen counter while showering. Notifications lit up the screen. Several texts from Brand Fit Flexed Biceps. My stomach twisted, but I didn't touch the phone. I still wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation. I even convinced myself it was normal when she started buying new workout clothes. Shorter shorts, tighter tops, and wearing makeup to the gym. "It makes me feel good," she said when I asked. But the hardest thing to ignore? The way she looked at me, like I was part of the background, just another piece of furniture in the home we built together. Something was shifting between us, and deep down, I knew. I just wasn't ready to face it, yet. The moment of truth came one Friday night. Amanda was working late again, something that had become a frequent excuse. After dinner alone, I grabbed a beer and settled into the couch, trying to push away the creeping suspicion gnawing at me. Around 9 p.m., Bailey and Max started barking at something outside. Curious, I walked over to the front window and peeked through the blinds. A sleek black SUV was parked at the curb. The passenger door opened, and Amanda stepped out, laughing. A tall, muscular guy followed, his hand resting on her lower back in a way that made my chest tighten. It was Brandon, her trainer. I froze, breath caught in my throat, watching as they lingered by the car, talking and laughing like teenagers on a first date. Then, before she turned to head inside, she kissed him. Quick, familiar, like it was something they'd done 100 times before. My beer slipped from my hand, crashing onto the floor and sending glass shards everywhere. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My mind raced with disbelief, anger, and a sickening clarity. When she finally walked through the front door, she was smiling, until she saw me standing there, arms crossed, rage simmering just beneath my skin. "Hey, you're still up?" she stammered, her voice too bright, too casual. I stared at her, heart pounding. Who was that outside? Her face paled. "What? Who?" "Don't lie, Amanda. I saw you." For a moment, she just stood there, caught between denial and panic. Then she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "He's just a friend from the gym. He gave me a ride home because my car wouldn't start." Her lie hit me like a slap. I could see the guilt, the panic she couldn't quite hide. "You kissed him. The color drained from her face entirely. She opened her mouth to argue, but must have realized there was no point. Jake, she started, but I held up my hand, silencing her. Don't. Just don't. The air between us felt like it could snap. Amanda's eyes darted around the room like she was searching for a way out of the conversation, of the mess she'd created. I can explain, she finally said, her voice trembling. I folded my arms. Go ahead. Explain how you ended up kissing your trainer outside our house. Her mouth opened, closed, like she was cycling through excuses but couldn't land on one believable enough. It wasn't what it looked like, she blurted. We've just gotten close as friends. Friends. I let the word hang in the air, dripping with disgust. Do all your friends kiss you goodnight like that? She bristled, shifting into defensive mode. It's not like that, Jake. Brandon's been helping me, emotionally. You don't get it. You've been so distant lately. The audacity of her turning this on me snapped something inside. Distant? Are you serious right now? I've been here every damn day while you've been working late and sneaking around. Her face hardened, the mask of defiance slipping into place. I needed someone to talk to. You're always stuck in your own world. You barely notice me anymore. That's funny, I said coldly. I noticed you plenty tonight. Noticed you kissing him like you didn't have a husband waiting for you at home. Amanda's jaw clenched, her eyes flashing with something between anger and desperation. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Her words hit me like a gut punch. So it did go far? She hesitated for half a second, just long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. Get out, I growled, voice low but steady. What? Her face twisted in shock. I said get out. I stepped closer, my pulse roaring in my ears. I don't care where you go. Just go. For the first time, she looked genuinely scared, not of me, but of what she just destroyed. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, hurling one last venomous line over her shoulder. You'll regret this, Jake. The front door slammed behind her, leaving nothing but silence, and the shattered remains of the life we'd built. The silence in the house felt deafening after Amanda stormed out. I stood frozen, staring at the closed door, my mind a whirlwind of rage, betrayal, and something worse, grief. Bailey and Max circled my feet, sensing the tension. I knelt down, burying my face in their fur as the weight of what had just happened crashed over me. My chest heaved, but I forced myself to stay composed. Crying felt like giving her power. I spent that night pacing the living room, replaying every moment, the lies, the late nights, the excuses, all the signs I'd ignored because I trusted her. I hated myself for being so blind. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. I'm sorry. Can we please talk? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button, torn between anger and some stubborn shred of hope that she'd say something, anything, that could fix this. But there was nothing she could say. I tossed the phone on the couch and grabbed a whiskey from the cabinet, drinking until the edges of my rage blurred into numbness. I hated that she still had this hold on me, even after everything. As dawn broke, exhaustion finally pulled me under. I crashed on the couch, haunted by memories of better times. Times when she loved me, or at least pretended to. But when I woke up hours later, the anger was still there, burning hotter than ever. By morning, the fog of whiskey and sleeplessness had lifted, leaving behind something sharper, clarity. Amanda's betrayal wasn't just a bad decision. It was a deliberate, selfish choice. She'd played me for months while I held on to the fantasy of our marriage. That version of us was dead now, and there was no bringing it back. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cold cup of coffee I'd poured but couldn't drink. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Amanda. Jake, please. Can we just talk? I need to explain. Explain what, exactly? That she got bored? That I wasn't enough? That she fell for a guy who probably didn't even care about her beyond the thrill of sneaking around? I clenched my jaw, scrolling back through her messages. The urge to reply burned inside me, but I fought it. She wanted to ease her guilt, not fix what she'd broken. Instead, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her again, I'd outsmart her. I opened my laptop and started searching. Divorce attorneys, financial advisors, private investigators. If she thought she could walk away from this with everything intact, she was dead wrong. I was done being blindsided. If she wanted to lie, cheat, and manipulate, I'd show her what consequences looked like. The old Jake might have crumbled under the weight of heartbreak. But now, I felt sharper, colder, like I'd been reforged by betrayal itself. It was time to rewrite the ending of our story, on my terms. The next few days were a blur of quiet but calculated action. I met with a divorce attorney named Rachel Hayes, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who didn't flinch when I laid out the whole ugly story. "She's going to try to manipulate you," Rachel warned, scanning my notes. "Cheaters like her often play the victim when things fall apart. We'll file on grounds of adultery, but let's be strategic. No impulsive moves." Her words steadied me. This wasn't just emotional anymore. It was tactical. Every lie Amanda told, every sneaky late-night session with Brandon, was fuel for what came next. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled man named Frank, who'd seen it all. "Discretion is key," he said. "We'll track her patterns, get evidence you can use in court." Meanwhile, I secured my finances. I locked down my bank accounts, changed passwords, and made sure Amanda couldn't touch a dime she hadn't earned herself. Late one night, I logged into our shared phone account. Call logs, texts, all the proof I needed. Hundreds of messages between Amanda and Brandon, filled with cheap flirtation, inside jokes, and plans to meet up. I felt sick reading their exchanges, but I couldn't stop. Each text fueled my resolve. Then I saw it. A reservation confirmation for a luxury cabin 2 hours away, this coming weekend. Her name, his. A romantic getaway she hadn't even tried to hide. My hands trembled with rage, but my mind stayed clear. She thought she was untouchable, thought I'd keep playing the fool. She was wrong. By Friday, I had everything in place. Frank, the PI, confirmed that Amanda and Brandon were heading to the luxury cabin. They'd booked it under his name, probably thinking it would hide the trail. But nothing escapes someone like Frank. I spent the morning finalizing paperwork with Rachel. "Once we serve her, she'll be blindsided," she said, sliding the documents across the table. "We have bank records, phone logs, and now, this weekend." That night, I packed a small bag, tossed it in the trunk of my car, and drove toward the cabin. I wasn't going there to confront them. No reckless drama, no shouting matches. This was about control. I parked at a nearby overlook with a clear view of the secluded property. Frank arrived shortly after with a telephoto camera and a grim nod. "This'll be over fast." We watched from a distance as Amanda and Brandon arrived, laughing, holding hands like love-struck teenagers. The sight stung more than I'd expected, but I stayed focused. Frank snapped picture after picture. Them unloading bags, stealing kisses, disappearing inside. Evidence. While Frank documented their cozy weekend, I made my next move. Using the phone records, I contacted the resort management anonymously, hinting at suspicious activity involving their most exclusive cabin. It didn't take long before the resort's security team rolled up the winding path, headlights slicing through the night. Frank grinned. "Showtime." From our vantage point, we saw the resort staff knock on the cabin door. Amanda answered, clearly startled. Brandon appeared behind her, shirtless and annoyed. After some heated back and forth, they were escorted off the property, bags and all. The cabin reservation was canceled. Non-refundable. Frank lowered the camera and chuckled. "That's going to sting." It was petty, sure, but it was just the beginning. By the time I got back home, the storm I'd unleashed was already brewing. Frank sent me a folder packed with damning photos and timestamps, proof Amanda couldn't deny. That Monday, Rachel filed the divorce papers, citing adultery with evidence attached. By noon, Amanda was officially served at work. I imagined the look on her face when the process server walked into her office, envelope in hand. No quiet corner to hide. No way to spin the story before the truth hit her like a freight train. I expected a call or a barrage of texts, but nothing. Just eerie silence. It felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. Later that night, I got my first message from her. "Jake, can we please talk?" I had no idea things were this bad. Bad? She didn't even know the half of it. I ignored the message. She was scrambling now, grasping for damage control, but it was too late. I had the upper hand, and I wasn't letting go. The next day, her gym suspended her boyfriend, Brandon, after an anonymous tip about inappropriate relationships with clients. Word spread fast in their fitness community. Texts, social media posts, whispered gossip. Amanda couldn't escape it. By midweek, she showed up at the house unannounced, pounding on the door like a woman possessed. The dogs barked wildly, but I didn't move, just watched her through the peephole, seething. "Jake, open the door," she shouted, voice cracking. "We need to talk." I let her pound until her fists slowed, shoulders sagging under the weight of her crumbling world. Then, finally, I unlocked the door, but only opened it a few inches. "You've got 2 minutes," I said coldly. She looked wrecked, pale, makeup smudged, hair disheveled. Not the polished woman who thought she could play me for a fool. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean for things to get this far." I stared at her, unmoved. "You didn't make a mistake. You made choices. Over and over." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't want to lose you. I just—" "Stop." My voice was ice. "You lost me the second you kissed him." Her breath hitched. "Can't we fix this?" I leaned closer, meeting her tear-soaked gaze. "You're not here because you want to fix us. You're here because you've got nothing left." Before she could respond, I shut the door in her face, locking it, sealing the past behind me. After slamming the door, I leaned against it, heart pounding, not with regret, but with satisfaction. Amanda was finally feeling the consequences she thought she could outrun. For the next few days, she bombarded me with calls and texts. "Jake, please. I still love you. We can work through this. You're being so cruel." I ignored every message, letting her spiral into desperation. Part of me relished seeing her fall apart, knowing she couldn't manipulate her way out of this mess. Then, on Friday night, my phone buzzed with something unexpected, a message from Brandon. "Hey man, can we talk? This isn't what you think." I laughed out loud, the audacity of it almost comical. Not what I think. I'd watched him kiss my wife, seen him parade her around like a trophy. I had enough proof to bury them both. But curiosity got the better of me. I replied, "Talk." Within minutes, my phone rang. His voice was shaky, unsure. "Look, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. She told me you two were separated, that she was leaving you." I said nothing, letting the silence stretch until he tripped over his own guilt. "She said you were controlling, distant," he stammered. I didn't know she was lying." His pathetic attempt at redemption only fueled my rage. He wasn't apologizing. He was covering his own ass. "You didn't know?" I finally snapped. "Did you not know when you kissed her in front of our house? When you took her on a romantic getaway?" He stuttered, searching for words. I swear, man, I didn't mean." "Save it." My voice was cold, steady. "I don't care what she told you. You knew. And now? You're just another idiot she used." Before he could respond, I hung up, savoring the hollow sound of the disconnected line. Amanda and Brandon thought they could rewrite the story, but this wasn't their script anymore. After hanging up on Brandon, I expected more fireworks, calls, texts, some last-ditch attempt to explain away what couldn't be excused. But the silence that followed was even better. By Monday, I heard through Frank, my PI, that Brandon had been fired from the gym after multiple clients complained about unprofessional conduct. Apparently, Amanda wasn't his only special client. The fallout was spreading like wildfire. Social media buzzed with whispers about Amanda's affair. Fitness influencers she once collaborated with unfollowed her. Even her company's management was reviewing her conduct. Her entire world, the one she'd built on lies, was crumbling. Then came the inevitable, another visit. Late one evening, I heard a car door slam outside. Peeking through the blinds, I saw Amanda, looking hollowed out, clutching a folder. She rang the bell, but I didn't move. "Jake, please." Her voice cracked, muffled by the door. "Just hear me out." Against my better judgment, I opened the door, but only halfway. Make it quick. Her hands trembled as she held out the folder. It's my resignation letter, she whispered. I lost my job today. I didn't blink. Sounds like consequences finally caught up. Her face twisted in desperation. You have to believe me. Brandon meant nothing. I was lonely. I made a mistake, please. You keep calling it a mistake, Amanda, I said coldly. But mistakes don't happen over months. They don't involve secret getaways and lies. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know I messed up, but we have history. Doesn't that count for something? For a split second, I saw the woman I used to love, before the lies, before the betrayal. But it wasn't enough. Our history ended the day you walked out of our marriage, I said quietly. The life you threw away, it's gone. Her shoulders shook, but I didn't waver. Goodbye, Amanda. I closed the door, this time for good. After shutting the door on Amanda, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. No more lies, no more games, just closure. For the first time in months, I could finally breathe. But Amanda wasn't done. 2 days later, I got a call from Rachel, my divorce attorney. She's contesting the divorce, Rachel said grimly. She's claiming emotional distress, even hinted at reconciliation attempts you supposedly ignored. Are you serious? I hissed. She's desperate, Rachel explained. Losing her job hurt her financially. She's hoping to guilt you into a settlement. My jaw clenched. Amanda wasn't fighting for us. She was fighting for a payday. I want this done, I snapped. No settlements, no mercy. Rachel agreed. We'll push forward. With the evidence we have, she doesn't stand a chance. Still, her audacity burned in my chest. After everything she'd done, she still thought she could manipulate her way back into my life. Or at least into my bank account. That night, as I sat alone with Bailey and Max curled up at my feet, I realized something. I'd already won. She had no job, no reputation, and no home. Her actions had torched every bridge she'd built. Meanwhile, I still had my house, my career, and a future she couldn't touch. I grabbed a glass of whiskey and stepped out onto the back porch, letting the cold night air fill my lungs. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. Amanda could contest, fight, and scheme all she wanted. But she couldn't change the truth. She had already lost. The divorce proceedings kicked off in full force. Amanda came in swinging, tears in her eyes, spinning a story about being abandoned and emotionally neglected. Her lawyer painted me as a cold, distant husband who had driven her into another man's arms. I sat there stone-faced, letting her dig herself deeper. Rachel, my attorney, stayed sharp and composed, dismantling every lie Amanda threw our way. Then came our turn. Rachel presented the phone logs, text messages, and surveillance photos, irrefutable evidence of her affair. The judge's face grew stonier with each damning exhibit. Amanda's lawyer tried to object, claiming the evidence was irrelevant, but the damage was done. The courtroom grew tense when Frank, my PI, took the stand. He detailed Amanda's secret rendezvous with Brandon, complete with timestamps, photos, and receipts. There was no escaping the truth. Amanda shifted uncomfortably, her bravado crumbling. Gone was the confident woman who thought she could manipulate her way out of anything. In her place sat someone exposed, cornered. Finally, Rachel played the ace up her sleeve. Amanda's gym termination letter, citing unprofessional conduct with clients. Even her lawyer looked stunned by that one. By the end, there was nothing left to fight over. The judge ruled swiftly, divorce granted, no alimony, no settlement. Amanda was entitled to nothing. I expected her to explode, lash out, but she just sat there, hollow-eyed, like she couldn't believe it was really over. As we left the courtroom, she caught up to me in the hallway, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jake, can we talk? Just for a minute." I paused, meeting her tear-filled eyes, searching for, what? Regret? Remorse? But all I saw was loss. "There's nothing left to say," I said quietly. "You made your choices, now live with them." She choked back a sob, but I didn't look back. This time, I was walking away, and never looking back. After the courtroom showdown, life felt eerily quiet. The chaos Amanda brought into my life was gone, leaving behind a strange emptiness. The house felt too big, too silent. But it was my silence now, not hers. I threw myself into rebuilding. I took on extra projects at work, signed up for a boxing class, and started renovating the guest room into a home office. Each swing of the hammer felt like closing a chapter, reshaping my life one piece at a time. One evening, Rachel called to wrap up the final details. "Everything's official," she said. "The house, the accounts, it's all settled." "Thank you," I said sincerely. Before hanging up, she added, "By the way, Amanda moved out of state. Looks like she's staying with some distant relative." Hearing that brought an unexpected sense of closure. She was gone. No more run-ins, no more manipulation. I sat on the back porch that night with Bailey and Max at my side, watching the stars. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace, not because of what I'd taken from Amanda, but because of what I'd reclaimed for myself. Weeks turned into months. Life slowly found its rhythm again. I built a routine: work, gym, evenings spent playing fetch with Bailey and Max. The weight of the past felt lighter each day. One Friday evening, I met some coworkers for drinks at a nearby bar. I wasn't looking for anything, just a chance to unwind. That's when I noticed her. A woman sitting at the bar, reading a worn paperback, completely absorbed. She wasn't flashy, didn't seem like she was trying to be noticed, but something about her presence drew me in. I ordered another drink and, after a moment's hesitation, walked over. "Good book?" I asked, gesturing to her novel. She looked up, surprised, then smiled. A warm, genuine smile that felt real. "Depends on how you feel about mystery thrillers," she replied, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Love him," I said, sliding onto the stool next to hers. "Mind if I join you?" We talked for hours, about books, travel, life. Her name was Emily, a nonprofit director who radiated kindness and intelligence. She asked thoughtful questions, listened closely, things Amanda never did. For the first time in a long time, I laughed. Not the bitter, cynical laugh that betrayal leaves behind, but something genuine. As the bar emptied out, Emily scribbled her number on a napkin and slid it toward me. "Call me sometime. If you're into more mystery thrillers," she teased. I watched her leave, feeling something I thought was long gone: hope. I waited a couple of days before texting Emily, part nerves, part disbelief that someone like her might be interested in someone like me. "Hey, it's Jake from the bar. Hope you haven't solved all the mysteries without me." Her reply came faster than I expected. "Depends. You free this Friday to help crack another case?" Smiley face. We agreed on a casual dinner at a cozy Italian place downtown. As I got ready that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling of nervous excitement, something I hadn't felt in years. When Emily walked in, she lit up the room. Not in a flashy way, but with a natural warmth. She wore dark jeans, a soft sweater, and the same genuine smile that had drawn me in from the start. Dinner was effortless. Stories, shared laughs, and moments of unspoken understanding. Emily was sharp, funny, and refreshingly real. She didn't talk at me, she talked with me, a difference I hadn't realized I was starving for. After dinner, we strolled through the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting off the water. "I haven't done this in a while, dating, I admitted. Her eyes softened. "Neither have I, but I'm glad we're figuring it out together." When we paused by the Riverwalk, she brushed a strand of hair from her face, and before I could second-guess myself, I leaned in. Our kiss was soft, warm, and real, a moment untouched by the past. As I drove home that night, a realization hit me. Amanda's betrayal no longer defined me. The past was still there, but its hold on me had faded. Maybe, just maybe, I was ready for something new. Emily and I started spending more time together, building something steady and genuine. There was no rush, just moments that felt right. One evening over takeout, I told her everything: Amanda, the affair, the divorce. I expected awkwardness, pity, but Emily just listened, her hand resting gently on mine. "You didn't deserve that," she said quietly, her voice steady. No dramatics, no empty reassurances, just compassion that settled something deep inside me. Life with Emily was simple but meaningful. Weekends spent hiking, spontaneous road trips, and quiet evenings reading on the couch with Bailey and Max curled at our feet. It felt safe. Right. But healing isn't a straight line. One night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I still think about you. I'm sorry. Amanda." My stomach twisted, memories threatening to surface. Old wounds whispered familiar doubts, but only for a moment. This time, I didn't hesitate. I deleted the message without replying. When I turned back to the living room, Emily was curled up with a book, her peaceful expression untouched by the storm that had just passed through my phone. In that moment, I knew I was free. Amanda no longer had a hold on me. She was just a closed chapter in a book I'd already finished. For the first time, I wasn't just moving on, I was moving forward. A year passed in what felt like a breath. Life with Emily was steady and full. Not perfect, but real. We built a life together, brick by brick, with trust and understanding. One crisp autumn morning, we took Bailey and Max to our favorite hiking trail. The leaves crunched beneath our boots as the dogs bounded ahead, chasing squirrels with unrestrained joy. The summit offered a sweeping view of endless trees painted in fiery reds and golds. Emily slipped her arm around me, resting her head on my shoulder. "I'm glad we found each other," she whispered. I turned to her, heart pounding, not from fear this time, but from certainty. Dropping to one knee, I pulled a small velvet box from my jacket pocket. Emily gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Emily," I said, voice steady, "you came into my life when I didn't think I could trust anyone again. You showed me how to hope, how to believe, how to love. Will you marry me?" Tears shimmered in her eyes as she nodded frantically. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger, and she threw her arms around me, laughing through her tears. Bailey and Max barked excitedly, oblivious but joyful in the moment. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, I thought back to the darkest days, when betrayal felt like the end of everything. But it wasn't. It was just the prologue to something so much better. The past no longer haunted me. It had shaped me. And now, I was ready to live. Not in spite of it, but because I'd finally let it go.